Welcome back. Episode 13.
What's up, shitbags? Lucky number 13, right? That's what we were just talking about. We got episode 13, New Dogs, Old Tricks. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, thank you guys for everything. I'm not going to do a sales pitch this time, so you're welcome. But all we'll do, we'll thank everybody. We'll thank all you guys for listening, all you guys for helping out. Of course, Taylor, Jobtown, Crew First, can't do it without them. Check them out, show them some love. Fuck us now. We don't have to have any more help. We got our stuff figured out. But go check out Taylor, Jobtown Crew. They're always doing great stuff. So really excited to get all of them back on the podcast coming up. It's gonna be a good time to have Jeremy back on and then get to talk to Taylor and Jobtown for the first time. But right now we got quite the guest. Quite the guest. We are beyond excited to have him on. We were just talking about we didn't expect him to say yes to come on here, but here he is, more than willing, more than happy to come on, and we can't wait to get this started. So without further ado, let's bring in Corley Moore. What's up, brother?
How we doing, gentlemen?
Good.
We're doing great.
Doing?
Really excited.
Thank you so much for coming on. For those that don't know you, I'll let you tell us a little bit about yourself. Give a little introduction.
Absolutely. Bryce, Brendan, thank you for having me. First off, my name is Corley Moore. I run Firehouse Vigilance. I believe in the never-ending fight against complacency, and I host the weekly scrap. I'm the luckiest dude in the fire service, plain and simple. That's the easiest way to explain it, is the fact that I get to talk to the most amazing, passionate firefighters week in and week out, including tonight. Clyde Gordon coming on. How great is that? And
listen to that one.
But no, it's just and the crazy part is, this is what I tell people all the time, is people say, "Hey, Chief Corley, thanks for what you do, man. Thank you for what you do." And I'm like, "Are you serious right now? I get to talk to the coolest cats in the fire service and have one-on-one and get to call now, after doing it for 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. I get to call a lot of them my friends, and it's crazy to me that people say thank you for that. And so I am the luckiest dude in the fire service. So long story short, that's kind of probably what people know me the most for. I'm also a firefighter, a battalion chief, Moore Fire Department, my greatest department on the planet. I always tell people that. I absolutely love. Been there 27 years a week ago. So, and I run the green shift, also known as C shift, best shift. And they're a motley collection of badasses that make me look good every shift. So that's who I am. Father, husband, and passionate firefighter.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like you said, that's exactly how we feel. I think just on a higher level, because we are truly nobodies, but we get to talk to all these amazing firemen and women that are eager to come on here and spread the message. And I think we talked about maybe last episode or the episode before, but that getting a thank you or hearing people excited to listen to this, for us, it's a starstruck moment, and we're happy that people feel the way. But yeah, you're right. You don't understand why people are thanking you. Like we talk about all the time. We started this selfishly. We just wanted to talk to other firemen, firefighters, and learn from them. But in the end, that was the goal, is to help some people too. And the fact that it's coming true is crazy.
No, it's humbling. It's humbling when the baddest asses come on and have a one-on-one conversation with you, or one-on-two conversation in this case, and then they get to say thank you. One of my favorite podcast hosts, Chris Williamson, he runs Modern Wisdom. I talk about it quite a bit because I'm ate up with it, and it's awesome. But he talks about his guest to friend conversion rate, and I love that metric to use, and so that's something to strive for always. Is every guest, I want them to consider themselves my best friend when it's over. And I tell them, hey, I'm going to randomly text you and call you at different times to ask you questions. They're like, okay. So far, I'm very proud of my guest to friend conversion rate. I very much so.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. That's always the end goal. It's crazy just even on shift. Some of them from meeting or from trainings and stuff, but some from this, like we talking about the other, a couple months ago, we were bothering Bobby Eckert because we were talking, but we were getting into it on shift, and I was like, we had just came back from Wichita where we met you and saw Bobby, and I was like, let me text him, see if he answers, and got his input on stuff. It's the coolest thing to be able to have that. In your phone nowadays, that you can just text somebody from across the country and be like, hey, what do you think of this shit? Like,
yes.
And we got a job that night, and I told him I won my argument.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. So yeah, awesome. thank you for telling a little bit, introducing yourself and coming on. So first question that we got on here is a little bit more about yourself. How did you end up in the fire service?
Ending up in the fire service, man, I will tell you this is that I was supposed to be a firefighter. And that's why I ended up in the fire service. I was supposed to be a firefighter. Now, I didn't know it at the time. I was 19, 20 years old, right in that area. I had no direction in life. I had taken my ACT, applied to some colleges. The football was what I loved back then. I was athletic at the time, and I loved football, but it was not anything that was going to go to the next level. And I was just working minimum wage, maybe $1 above minimum wage type jobs, manual labor / low skill jobs. And it was actually my father who, because I was married, I had a kid, I was 20 and had no future. And my father actually called me and said, "Hey, I've got this guy." He taught Sunday school at a local church. And he said, "I've got this guy in my Sunday school class and he's a fire chief. And he says they're getting ready to hire." And I was like, okay, firefighting's always been one of those things that every time I see, the guys on the red truck when I'm, in my car and I see them pull by, I'm like, that's a pretty freaking cool job, So it's always been one of those things. Like, I don't say I wasn't one of those people that was like, I'm going to be a firefighter. I'm going to be a firefighter. It was never that, but I always thought it was cool. Like, they do cool shit. You know what I'm saying? So long story short, he told my dad what I needed to do, which was get my EMT at the time and apply and be in shape. Well, luckily I was, still fresh out of football, still pretty much in shape. And so the shape thing wasn't a problem. And I went and got my EMT in the evening time. And then I applied, and I think there was around 700 people that applied for those positions. And I got super, super lucky. I'll say it. And I think I won't even say lucky. I think God was looking out for me. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I was supposed to be a firefighter. And I was never a person that, if I hadn't gotten hired on that hiring process, I wasn't the guy that was going to keep trying until I made it, right? I would have just gone to the next job or whatever. So it wasn't like, I'm going to be a firefighter, I'm going to stick it out. I respect those people who tried 30, 40 times to get hired until they finally got their dream job. No, God was looking out for me. I made it on the job. And that's how I became a firefighter, was my dad kind of pushing me, saying, "Hey, maybe you should try to do something with your life," And I was supposed to do it. So long story short, I got there, but I really didn't appreciate the job. I didn't. It was just a job. I loved it. Do not get me wrong. Please don't take it the wrong way. There is nothing better than, tones dropping, structure fire. There is no better feeling in the world. And I loved it from the get-go, man. Forcing a door, dragging lines, crawling into smoke, all of it. Just the adrenaline, the excitement. Man, yeah, I just love it. Even just any sort of emergency calls, just responding to the chaos, and you're the one bringing order to that chaos. I love that aspect of it. But I want to be clear, I was not mature. I did not have an appreciation for how great this job was. And I was very lackadaisical, and I like to, what's the best way to say it? I like to be irresponsible, off duty especially, not necessarily on duty. But I was known for not taking it serious, plain and simple. That's the easiest way to put it. I was a jokester. I was a complacent. I think there's a lot that goes into it, but that we can talk about more about that, the changes and stuff over time. But yeah, that's how I became a firefighter, was plain and simple. Dad looking out for me. Got lucky and blessed enough because I was supposed to be a firefighter. It was the meaning in my life. So
Sweet.
Awesome. Yeah.
I was a complete opposite. I don't know. Since I was little, I was like, I want to be a firefighter, and I just stuck with it throughout my, elementary, middle school, high school, until senior year, until I got me. Well,
that's awesome.
I got a head start. So I got a head start when I was 14, the cadet program at the department I am right now. So, yeah.
No, I have massive respect for people who knew that and understood that in their heart, that that's what they were going to do, and they were going to make it no matter what. I have massive respect for it and stuck it out. I think that's a much better story than mine, which is just kind of backdooring it, falling into it, because I got lucky.
It's kind of funny because BJ was our last guest, and he had a very, very similar, where it wasn't what he expected to do. He had always known of it. He always thought it was, a cool thing, but he never thought he'd make a career out of it. And
right.
you just fell into it, and now we got, you know, two back-to-back guests who fell into this job, and some of the most passionate people in it. Like it's so cool. I mean, we talked about it there. Like this, we love hearing the stories going from people who are legacies, or people who knew they wanted to do it, or people who just found it.
Yeah.
And you all share the same passion, all share the same excitement for a job. Like it's just such a cool thing that all these different paths just lead to the best job in the world.
Different journeys, how we get there. And Breacher's awesome. Breacher is a passionate dude, man.
Oh,
so
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. We'll kind of let you go into that a little bit. I may even change this up a little bit because you were saying, you know, when you started off that you were that jokester, you're there and talking about your upcoming. So our question is, what'd you do as a new firefighter to earn the respect of your crew? So if you want to even throw in kind of how you progressed, kind of like you were saying.
Sure. No, because it's a cool. It's cool to me. I don't know how cool it is to other people, but it's a journey. My journey was, first of all, the culture of my department at the time, and this is not a knock on my department. It's a great department, but the culture at the time was whoever could do the least won. You know, if you could, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because and it's hard to explain. The generation that came before me fought a completely different battle that I reaped the benefits of. They fought a battle for rigs and good gear and stations that weren't falling apart and pay that was competitive. They fought a lot of battles so that when I showed up, all that stuff was in place and I just took it for granted, you know? And so they had won their fights and their battles to turn the Moore Fire Department into what it was, which was a very competitive place to work at the time. And, but their culture was not of training and being ready, and not a mindset of preparedness. And for them, it was not. It was a complacent place where you won your career by getting assigned to the slowest station possible so that you could make as few rides as possible. That was the culture. And I was absolutely a product of that culture. Like the goal was train as little as you could, make rides, to always make the rides, you know what I'm saying? But do as little as you could, and you won the day. And again, it makes it sound like it was a terrible place. It wasn't a terrible place. There's a lot of places that are like that, and a lot of places that have gotten there. And that's one of the reasons why I think Firehouse Vigilance and the Weekly Scrap has a lot of authenticity, is because I'm not a guy who came into the fire service a go-getter and been a go-getter since day one. I've been completely complacent. I have been the part of the problem. I have been toxic. I have been lazy. And that changed over time. So when you ask, what did I do as a new firefighter to earn the respect? Man, I fit into the culture, and you were respected if you fit into the culture. Now, fast forward, and like I said, it's a weird dichotomy because I always loved fires. Like there's nothing better in the world than making fire. So even though I was complacent and lazy and all that, man, I still loved going to fires. So what really changed was when I saw Mark Von Oppen speak, and completely blew my mind with his fully involved in the Big Four. And the concept that you can love this job and be ate up with it, and that's okay. And I was like, I mean, serious. It's hard to explain the epiphany that was to me, the mind-blowing aspect of you can be ate up with the tactics, the strategy, getting good at this job, being highly competent at this job, getting ready for this job, being prepared for this job, having a mindset of kicking ass. And that's cool, because that was completely foreign to me at the time. And so that was the shift for me. And that's really ultimately, Mark Von Oppen is one of the biggest reasons I started Firehouse Vigilance. In fact, one of his articles he wrote, it talks about the number one way to fight complacency is to remain ever vigilant. I'm butchering his quote, but that's basically where the vigilance comes from in Firehouse Vigilance, is that article. And then one of my retired battalion chiefs, Terry Scott, he spent 38 years at the Moore Fire Department. When he retired, he told me, he said, Corley, the hardest battle you will ever fight is the fight against complacency. And so those two things are where the Firehouse Vigilance was born from. And from that point forward, I've been ate up with the fire service and ate up with competence at this job. And I'm not saying I'm highly competent, but man, it is a never-ending fight to get there. So that's kind of the journey there. I made a lot of mistakes. I think that's probably the number one way that I earned the respect of those around me. I'm not just mistakes and goofs, not nothing that was tragic or anything like that, but just figuring out what didn't work most of the time until I figured out what did work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that was something that we've talked about on here too. Is it's interesting when you come into the culture and you don't understand the battles that have been fought before or whatever it is. Like you always get that thrown around. I even joke about it now of back in my day it was you walked uphill both ways in the snowstorm.
Right.
Like you always hear that and you hear that it was you don't know what we did to get here. And I think it was kind of a epiphany moment where you're saying too is I think people don't mean to be complacent, but they have their own battles, and once they finish them, then it's like I've done it. I've done it. And when you came in at that point, that to me sounds like exactly what they were doing is they just fought all these political, tiresome, annoying battles, and they got them all, and they're like, time to reap the rewards. We're done.
No, and I have a high level of empathy for them because I can only imagine what they felt like with a young guy at the time coming up behind him saying, you guys don't do enough. You don't train enough. You guys are all complacent. And, I can only imagine the message they heard, which is, the battles, and they fought battles like against admin and city hall or, insert whatever the stakeholders were to get the stuff that I just took for granted. And so I can only imagine how ungrateful they felt like I was. And I imagine, and I try to project forward, to where the culture of our department is amazing now. It really is, has a high level of training and preparedness. And I can only imagine people, whatever the next generation is coming in behind and them fighting their battles and kind of sending me the message of you haven't done enough and how I would feel about that. Be like, wait a second, you don't understand, And so it's that empathy that I think is so necessary to make sure, especially the guys that are retired. I know some of them still resent, have no love for me. I'll put it that way, because some of my message, I'm sure, was rightfully so taken as they didn't do enough. And that's unfortunate that I sent that message. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you hit it. We talked about it a lot, and I think it's always one of the things that gets thrown out, especially when you ask for like characteristics of a good leader. But that empathy, just for everybody, is extremely important because if you have that empathy, you can understand where everybody else is coming from. Like if you're sitting here going just 100% of the time, hey, we need to do more, we need to do this, we need to do this, and you're not caring about what anybody else says or what they think, how they feel, like you're not going to gain buy-in, you're not going to gain traction, you're not going to be able to move forward at all.
No, you'll be spinning your tires. And I believe this with all my heart and soul. Between humility and empathy are your keys to fixing like 98% of the problems in leadership. Humility and empathy, man, without a doubt, because with those two things, you can learn and you can grow.
Absolutely. Next one that we have, we'll kind of build on that to an extent. This can be as when you're newer, when you're a firefighter, even now. What do you think brings a crew together the best?
Oh, that's a awesome question. First of all, easy answer for me, which is shared adversity. I don't think there's anything on this planet that brings a crew together better than shared pain or shared adversity. I don't know which word's better because they mean two different things, but it could be anything from PT, physical workouts, where you accept a challenge and push yourselves and you do it together. That's phenomenal. I love when I see a crew, like they do some sort of challenge, some sort of burpee challenge together, or you stair climb. Man, I'm telling you, we did a stair climb 2 years ago, 2022. I did the stair climb here in Oklahoma City. And man, all I wanted to do was not embarrass myself. You know what I'm saying? That was one of my main goals as the old guy. And I did well. I'm very proud of how I did. Made it through the whole thing, pack on everything, never had to shut gear. So I was very, very proud of that, but not the point. That shared experience of those who did that was really, really bonding. And then of course, when I talk about shared adversity, it's also the calls. When you share a tough call, I don't think there's anything that can bring a crew together better than a shared tough call, especially a hard fought fire where you had to overcome, you had to find it. It was hiding from you and you had to get it. You had to swap in bottles, and the expenditure was there. I don't think anything brings you together like that. And then of course the tough heartache, which is a tragic part of the job, but it's there, man. I mean, the child drownings, the fatalities, the senselessness of some of it. I think that the people that you share those moments with, I can only imagine. I was never in the military. I was never served in combat or anything like that. But the only thing I could imagine and compare it to is people who shared combat time, to have that kind of bond that forms from those moments and the people that you shared it with. So all that being said, I think shared adversity, the ones you create on purpose yourself, like one thing we've been recently doing at Station 1, we've done cold plunges together. Like that's some pain. That's some mental anguish. It's a shared mental anguish because it's not fun, but it's awesome to do together and beat it. It's, first of all, it's great to do it by yourself and beat it. Like if you can force yourself to do it, it's awesome. I mean, you prove to yourself that you can do it. But when you do it with other people, especially a crew, and you do it together, it creates that bond. So things you can do on purpose, I think that's powerful. Workouts, again, powerful. Things we can't control, those tough calls, those fires. And of course, fire fixes everything. It really does, man. Fire fixes everything. You have a good fire, all the drama goes out the window for a little bit because you had a good fire and you guys went and kicked some ass. And, yeah. So long story short, man, shared adversity, shared pain, shared heartache. Nothing brings a crew together like that. In fact, so much drama and toxicity comes whenever things are going slow and a crew isn't looking like when things are going slow, the fires aren't coming, the calls aren't dropping. That's where all the drama and, idle hands are the devil's playground, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't have those intentional things, the training, the shared hardship and training, pushing yourself in training, the shared pushing yourself in workouts, those things are what keeps the idle hands busy and keeps the bond tight and keeps the drama low.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the hard part for smaller departments is we don't have all those fires.
Right.
I mean, we can go a long period, we can go months at a time before
Yes.
we see another one. But after a fire, my God, I mean, I think we got one of our, actually he's our lieutenant's dad. He's a retired member and he's a big camera guy. And so he still has a pager and he responds to fires when we're there. And I think every time that he's been there, there's a picture of me with a just shit-eating grin.
Yes.
Outside of fire every time. I mean, and that doesn't go away for like shifts on end. I mean, our chiefs come up to us, but when are you going to stop smiling? Like, it's like, I mean, it's just, that's exactly what it is. But I think, like BJ was talking about last week or last guest, is the nice side of that lack of fires on a small department is you can't hide.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get a bigger department that goes to maybe 2 fires a day.
Yeah.
But if you're one of them that stands in the yard with your hook out and just sitting there as a yard shepherd, like, did you really go to that fire?
Right.
And, here, small department, you can't hide. We have 8 people max. We have 6 minimum full-timers on a shift. So that first 5 minutes,
someone's not pulling their weight. It's obvious.
You're gonna know. You're gonna know who's not pulling your weight. You're gonna know that they're fucking up, and you have to still be ready and be good at your craft, even though it's that double-edged sword where we see less of them, but we for lack of a better explanation, have to be more prepared for them because we don't have the experience, the volume of them.
No, I 100%. And like you said, you can hide in the bigger departments, especially ones that have a ton of fire. Typically speaking, they got a ton of manpower showing up. They can stomp it out. They put enough bodies in there that they can exclude oxygen and put it out. And it's much easier to hide in that environment. But with low staffing, what I am the American Fire Service. I always say that. I am the American Fire Service. I don't mean that in a bragging way. I mean it in the fact of, I'm probably actually a bigger department if you actually look at the stats, but I'm come from a 4-station, 75, men and women on the line, and suburbia. We're not job town. Mm-hmm. And so that's the big thing. So, and the key to that is mindset. Like, you have to have the mindset of, we could be going to a fire today. Mm-hmm. And that's the key. Anyway, get me on a tirade, but yeah, absolutely.
That's why we have you here. That's exactly why we have you here. So carry on. Let's get that tirade going.
No. I mean, that it really does come down to you. Unless you're lucky enough to work in Choptown, and if you are, God bless you. But I don't, and the majority of the fire service does not. And so it's great. It's great to if you can get all your training and experience from the OJT, from actually making rides to actual fires, it's great. More power to you. But most people can't. We cannot buy enough fire experience on the fire ground. There's no way. And so it all comes down to a mindset of, in fact, Nick Ledeen, you talked about him earlier. One of my favorite articles he ever wrote. Me and him talk about it quite often, but it's 30 years for 30 seconds. You can look it up. 30 years for 30 seconds, fire engineering article, Nick Ledeen, 2015. And he talks about, do you have what it takes to stay plugged into this career for 30 years? For a chance that once, maybe twice, and maybe never, you'll have a 30-second window where you can save a human life. And dude, that is a powerful, powerful question, man. Mm-hmm. So it's the greatest job on earth, but it is a tough one. Complacency doesn't care. You talked about it earlier. It's sneaky, man. It'll sneak up on you and you won't even realize you're in it. And do you have what it takes to stay plugged in and reject that complacency and practice and prepare and train like tomorrow or 2 minutes from now, the tones could drop and you're going to your Super Bowl. You're going to that 30-second window. That's only going to happen once in your career, maybe twice if you're lucky, and that is the question that, like, I think every firefighter, when I say I am the American Fire Service, everybody should say I am the American Fire Service, and I will be prepared when that 30-second window comes. But it all comes down to mindset.
Yeah. I was like, every time I go on shift, it was like, I prepare for the worst, what's going to happen that shift. So you prepare your gear that way, in your mental state. So when that tone drops, you are prepared mentally, and you should be prepared physically with your training and everything else. So
no, absolutely.
Mindset you should be going into shift with.
And it's crazy how many people don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's complacency. And that is the never-ending fight. Just never-ending fight against complacency. Sure. And it will never end. So, absolutely.
It's always interesting because I've gotten in this conversation a couple times, even with civilians. I mean, he's gonna shoot me a text, but one of I'm gonna say he's one of our most in tune guests, because he's always texting me, "Hey, did your podcast mic break? When's the next episode coming out?" But my girlfriend's brother-in-law, he's just a civilian, but one of his best friends actually on the fire department where I'm from, where my dad just retired, and he always has questions about this, and he loves listening to, he loves learning about everything. But that was one of the conversations that he brought up very early when I was talking about this podcast, when he was asking me, he's like, "Oh, my buddy talks about guys wishing for fires." And he's like, "Isn't that kind of, shitty that you're wishing for something?" And I explained, it was like, we aren't wishing for somebody's house to burn down. We aren't wishing for that. I've talked about on the podcast, like, if we actually have that power, if me saying I wish we get a fire next shift and somebody's house actually lights off, like, oh, sorry, I'll start wishing for better things. But until I have that power, like, we aren't going to control that from happening. What I'm really saying is I want my chance. I want to show my opportunity. I want to do what I've been training to do. I want my Super Bowl. I mean, like, 30 years for 30 seconds. That's can you imagine? I mean, in sports world, if you want to relate it, sometimes that happens for some place when everybody's the Chiefs that win it back to back. Like, you could be in your 15, 20-year career and only have one Super Bowl. Like, any type of job, any type of passion, whatever you want to say, it is, like, if you have that dedication to stay tuned in and for one chance, one opportunity, I guess we're quoting Eminem now, like, that's all you need to do. That's what you need to have. That mindset is, and that was kind of an eye-opening thing. And I thought he had a really interesting take, and thought it was really cool. So I'll get a text from there saying he wants royalties now that I've mentioned him again. But I think it's really cool that he's just a civilian that wants to know more about this line of work.
No, I love it. And the other thing, I don't remember where I heard it early on in my career. I don't remember where it was, but it was basically one of them fireman prayers, which is, "Hey, God, I don't want anybody's house to burn down today. But if someone's house is going to burn down, let it be while I'm on shift."
Absolutely.
Right? And that's the mindset. Like, I don't want anybody to go through that tragedy, but if someone's going to, please let me be on duty. So I want to show up. I want to mitigate.
Yep. And I mean, that ties into one of the biggest cliches that I think people brush off, because our good friend JD was on it earlier, and he was talking about it. Like, if your house is on fire, who do you want going? And if the answer isn't you, there's something wrong. Like, it doesn't matter that your entire department should be great and could be great, and that's what we all hope for and train for. But if you don't want you responding to your own house, you really got to look in the mirror. Like, you should always want to expect that you're the best. That this is who you want. I mean, I want shift three.
I like it. I love the mindset.
Shift one, shift two, they're great. And I live in Fond du Lac and I work in Beaver Dam, so unfortunately none of them are going. But I want shift three. I know how we train. I know how shift one. I know how shift two trains. But I want shift three. I think we are the best. That is what everybody should think. It's not knocking anybody else. You should always think you're the best.
I can't argue that. Although I will put the caveat on there that I know in my network, especially now, there's some pretty jam up some bad asses. So if I got to pick anybody out of my network, I don't know. There's some dudes. I wouldn't even start naming names, but I don't get me wrong. I want if my house is on fire, because I live in my jurisdiction, if my house is on fire, I'd want C shift on duty. That doesn't mean A shift and B shift can't get it done and aren't badasses and full of badasses. I'm not insulting them. Exactly. And it may just be my bias, but I want C shift showing up because I know they're going to get it done. They're going to do the best they can. And no matter, not just my house, any house, but again, I know some badasses, so it's hard for me to say if I had a magic wand. But no, I get the mindset. 100%.
Because I feel like even if obviously, I mean, right here there's always going to be someone better, and you always should believe that there is someone better. But if you have that mindset, that means you're going to still be going to trainings. I mean, you're not going to think that you're the best and you haven't left your city in 16 years. Right. Like, you haven't gone to a training outside of work. You haven't done anything outside of your 24-hour shift. Like, you aren't going to think you're the best. If you're taking an honest look in the mirror and saying, I don't want that person. I don't want me responding to my own house. You got to push. Sign up for some trainings. Listen to some podcasts. Start going, do all this stuff. You got opportunities.
And that is part of the 30 years for 30 seconds. Do you have what it takes to stay plugged in and stay at the top of your game, to push yourself, to be the best version of yourself, to show up for that 30 seconds? And that is, man, it's yes, I love it. I absolutely love that, man. I love that mantra.
Perfect. Well, this next one became our favorite question very quick. And I'm, again, like I tell everybody, since we've started asking everybody, I'm not going to explain anything about it. It is however you take it. And it is simply, why are we here?
You guys got some great questions. Why are we here? And this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, very near and dear to my soul. And I get to answer it any way I want. So the easy go-to right out the gate is to help people. You want to say, I want to help people, or I want to make a difference. Those, nothing wrong with those answers. There really are. And that's initially what I think of whenever I think of why are we here? We're here to make a difference. We're here to help people. When the tones drop, we go, we make a difference. We help people. But I think it's deeper than that. And I think it ties to the core of our mission in the fire service, which I feel like, the fire service is a pendulum that swings and it loses focus and it loses priority at times. But I think that the core of it, and sometimes that the fire service has lost sight of it, is why we're here. And that is, I talk about it quite often. I talk about it when I teach my classes. And I first heard it, I don't know where it came from, but I heard it from Court Smith. Captain Court Smith, Major Court Smith. Now I think Court Smith, Oklahoma City Fire. And he's back in the training division, but he was in the training division. And what he does, they have 30, 40, 50 recruits at a time that come through Oklahoma City training. And he does a thing where he gets them all and he stands them up and they're all standing there at attention. Court Smith, he's a very intimidating dude, military bearing, crew cut. I don't think there's anybody I know who stands more straight up and down, like this ramrod straight. And he gets there and he asks them, why do you want to do this job? And like I said, he's intimidating. They're all recruits. They're intimidated and they're all sitting there. And he's like, why do you want to do this job? And they don't know if it's a trick question. They don't know, they don't know. Mm-hmm. But eventually one of them will answer and they'll say, sir, I want to help people. Or something along those lines. You know what I'm saying? And it's a good answer because it's the answer most recruits would give. And I love the way Court Smith addresses it. because he tells them, this is not derogatory. Okay. Please don't, I've had people push back on this, but just listen to the message of it. Because he tells them, listen, if you want to help people, go work at the Red Cross, go volunteer at your local hospital, go work for the Salvation Army. If you want to help people, he goes, because in this job, we get to put on the gear that no one else can wear, so we can go to the places that no one else can go, so we can rescue the people that no one else can save. And that is why we're here. And that's the focus of the fire service that I think we've lost at times, is we rescue the people that no one else can. Like all the other things, man, we do a ton of other stuff to fill our days and to keep us busy while we wait for our chance to rescue the people that no one else can rescue. And so that's why we're here. That's my answer. I give it all the inspiration of it to Court Smith, but that's the germ of it right there.
Awesome. I like that answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's been a very common conversation. I know we talked about it with Blatz on one of our first episodes that we had on there, but the other side that I've heard a lot of people arguing that I believe too is if you truly get into this job because you want to help people, you're going to be let down really quick. I mean, that 30 years for 30 seconds, 90% of those 30 years are not helping people. They're experiencing people abusing the system or
abusing the burnout.
I mean, you are going to get burned out if you expect to help people every step of the way. Now, I not that I don't have empathy but I think I'm a very empathetic person, especially when it comes to patient care and those people who are abusing, but it's because I think I've accepted that. I mean, I went down and worked in Milwaukee on a private ambulance where that was 99% of our calls. And you learn really quick if you can do this job, if you can bounce back, because for that 1%, for that 10%, for that 30 seconds, whatever it is. And I don't hold those grudges anymore. I mean, you get called to a freaking flyer and you're like, oh, really? But even on our shift, we have frequent flyers. As soon as we see them, we're all texting to the group chat, or we're all yelling out their names. We're laughing. We're like, oh my God, again. Like,
you're going to pick up Frank again.
Yeah. I think it all depends on that mindset. I mean, yes, there's times those issues have to be addressed. I mean, we do the right things of, hey, 911's not solving here. This is the 16th time you've called this month. Like there's ways to do it. But I think you see a big change in culture when you get people who that same address goes off and they go, oh my God, I swear I'm just gonna, and then you get people who are like, oh, we're going again. Come on. Like, you can be upset and mad about it, but that's like I think that's the downside of that helping people. Yes, we're here to help people safe, to do exactly what you said, go where nobody else can and make those grabs, make those rescues. But the unfortunate reality is that other time when you're sitting around there, you're just there. You're a taxi. I mean,
oh no, and this will be a drum I'll beat until I retire, and probably after I retire, is we have to get back to our mission focus. And and I'm not saying like we've drifted so far from our mission focus, and now we are setting our people up for failure. We're setting our people up for burnout. And don't get me wrong. What you say is 100. I'm agreeing with you 100%. The only way to survive a busy house is a proper mindset. Like, and when I say busy house, I'm talking about the one that makes, the 15, 16 calls in a day and 14 of them are BS, does not need 911. We're standing around while someone takes a blood pressure, where it's a taxi service. It's not needed. No, I'm all for helping people when needed, man. I'm telling you, I love making a difference in someone's life, man. I'll never forget. There was a family that this dude was 6'7" if he was an inch, and he was probably 85 years old. Okay. And he was a giant of a man probably when he was younger. He was probably like could move mountains, but he was now 85 years old and he was still 6'7". And his wife, they'd been married for probably 60 years, and she was maybe 5'3" and maybe 75 pounds, and he would fall. He would fall in the bathroom and he was a very, very independent person, probably been a strong person all his life. And I don't think I've took more pride than when our rig showed up to help them out. And because they were so apologetic, like, we're sorry, we hate to rely, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, man, we live for this. This is what we do. We help people who can't, and I don't, but there's a difference between that and then just the, I love helping people who need help. I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's the abuse. And that's what we have to figure out, a way to protect the mental, I hate the term, just, it's thrown around too much that we're, the PTSD and all that stuff, but the mental anguish that we subject our people to through the sheer amount of BS that we expect them to go to over and over and over and just be okay with. Again, we have to do it because it's our reality right now. So the only way to handle it is that mindset, that attitude you talked about. That's the only way to survive it without becoming a jaded, burnout, piece of shit, basically, and start resenting the people we're there to help. Because if you become the jaded, burnout POS, then when you do go to the 6'7" guy who legitimately needs help, you're showing up, with that shitty attitude, saying, "Come on, if you can walk, if you can talk, you can walk. Get up," or and that. And so the only way to protect us is to have that positive attitude with a positive crew and saying we're going to do the best every day. And I get that, but the other part of it I want to talk about is we have to start getting into community outreach. We have to start figuring out a way to disseminate the BS off the shoulders of the first responders. And not just fire, man, but if you want, and you work private ambulance,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and if you, okay, so you both did. So the last thing I want to see is the fire service turned into a private ambulance, because I know what the morale is like in those places. I know what the culture is like in those places, but I don't understand how we think it's going to turn into anything but that if we keep treating it like that. And so that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, we all know how crappy those cultures are, but yet we treat the fire service like that and say, what's the problem with our people's attitudes? What's happening? I don't understand recruitment and retention. What's the problem? It's a loss of mission focus. And we have to beat that drum, and we have to get that burden off the shoulders of every time someone calls 911. We have to get that off that. We have to start defining emergencies and saying it's okay that we don't go to that. And we have to say, instead, we're going to be over here training and preparing for when it's a real emergency. We have to get to a culture of preparedness instead of a culture of readiness, instead of a culture of busyness.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, and right now we're in the throes, the golden age, or whatever you want to call it, of fire services trying to make themselves as busy as possible to justify their existence. Yeah. And we have to get back to a culture of readiness and say it's okay to not go on every, Band-Aid boo-boo call. And I don't know how we get there exactly. I know community outreach is going to be part of it. I was in San Diego, Heartland, California, and they have an actual, I want to say it's a PA that's on staff at the city. Don't quote me on any of this, because it may be county. I might be getting the municipality wrong or whatever. But basically, when someone calls 911, they have a triage tree that kicks it down, and they actually get down to a point where they send an Uber to take the person to a hospital if it's deemed enough through their decision-making tree. They're not sending $1 million rig with 4 firefighters or 3 firefighters, an ambulance with 2, and going to something that an Uber can handle. And they're starting to prioritize those things. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. This is the kind of stuff that needs to start happening everywhere, but it takes someone. I'm just going to keep talking about it. Hopefully it will get some traction, and we'll get the battleship to start turning.
Mm-hmm. That would be crazy. We both work down one of our bigger cities in Milwaukee on the private, and that would be groundbreaking if that could happen. Like the devil's advocate in me says that somewhere somebody's going to abuse it, and then like on our end or the dispatch, whatever it be, and then that's going to be the end of it. Which is the hardest thing, is we deal with people. Our currency is people, our customers, everybody. We are only selling people. We're selling mindsets. When we show up, where we have our skills, we are the people that you trust, and our product that we work on is people, and they're so unpredictable. And that would be amazing if that could happen, because that would solve all of not all, but most of that burnout that you get from just the sheer volume of the calls that are all of those BS. But
and I don't think it's the volume. It's not the volume is not the issue. It's the volume, and you said it right. You said volume of BS. Mm-hmm. We don't mind emergencies. We thrive on emergencies. We thrive on it, man. When someone needs our help, we thrive on it. It makes us stronger. But it is the volume of BS that we have to wade through and then expected to still have that
Positive.
yeah,
mindset.
that's it, man. And it's a lot to ask of people. Again, I go back to, if you want the fire service to look like an ambulance service, keep treating it like one.
Mm-hmm.
And keep scratching your head going, what's wrong with recruitment and retention? We can't figure it out.
Yeah. I think just as we keep talking about everything, I think the closest that I've ever been, or the most I've wanted to snap on someone, is those times where you get those BLS, sure, but the BS runs at the same time, right after or right before there is an emergency. I mean, like for us, we have a 6-man minimum, so we get an ambulance out to a frequent, and then an accident drops. Now you've got, and if you have 2 patients, now we're going to be rolling basically 2 people in the squad, 1 person in the second ambulance, and 2 in the first. And now they got to try and make that work, or God help us, a fire drops. I mean, I've brought that up to our chief and talked about it. And it's unfortunately in our line of work, it takes a tragedy to make that change. But right now, so we have the 6-man minimum, but if we have people out on calls and everything, our language is we have to have 2 people, 2 full-timers at the station at any time. And the only reason is for the next ambulance call. We don't have to have, I've said, even if we get it changed to 3 for the engine for a possible fire call, because it has happened in our history as a department that there's been a fire where the first engine is rolled out with 2 people because there's been 2 ambulance calls go at the same time. And we're a full-time department. To me, I feel like we're a combination, but with full-time staff, I feel like that shouldn't be the case. That's what you get in most, volunteer, and you have to work with it, and we do work with it. But when your city's mindset is, we have to have the next ambulance staffed, we are an ambulance company. We're not a fire department.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And the priorities are there. And that's the loss of mission focus. Again, I go back to the loss of mission focus of why are we here? That's a great question. That's why I love the question, because we have lost that focus. Because when you ask that question, why are we here? And you answer it. And I would love to have, current, I want to say fire service leaders. I would say, administrative people in that are bigwigs in jurisdictions, ask them, why are we here? And their answers, I think, would be completely different than save the people no one else can save. It would be to be ready to make a call when it drops, no matter what the call is, or something like that. And that's a loss of mission focus. The one of the thing you did say was takes tragedy to make a change in the American Fire Service, which is sadly very true. But I want to edit it and say it takes a tragedy to change the American Fire Service quickly. And so I think that what we're trying to do, new dogs, old tricks, the weekly scrap, crew first culture. I mean, I won't even try to name names because there's so many good ones out there. All of them. There are the 10 pounds of pressure 100% of the time that Rob Fisher talks about. And that, so change will come. It just comes slowly, but we keep talking about it with podcasts like this, blogs, conferences, networking, talking to each other, encouraging each other. We are keeping that 10 pounds of pressure 100% of the time, and we will make a difference in the future direction of the American Fire Service. And hopefully we won't need that tragedy to make the change, and we can make it happen. It may take a lot longer than we want. We may not even see the benefits of it in our career, but it will make a difference.
Takes a long time to steer that battleship.
No doubt about it, man.
Another example for it. But yeah, that 10 pounds, 100%, that was another one, a great one too. I mean, our JD talked about it when JD came on. You used to be 100% pressure 10% of the time, and he said it led to him being jaded and getting angry at change not happening, and hearing about that.
Yes.
Yeah. The 10 pounds 100% is a much better, much different mindset of, it's not going to happen right away, and to just let it go. And that's all. I mean, it was such a good example. I hadn't heard it before until JD had mentioned it when we were talking, and it really is a good motto to live by when you want to make change. Don't expect it to be overnight, especially here.
No, I heard it from Rob Fisher originally. He's credited with it the most.
Oh yeah.
But he'll claim he doesn't know where he heard it from. It's not his. He doesn't claim it. He just says it a lot. But everybody else gives him the credit for it. So I will continue to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, that was exactly what we expected with that, or why we asked that question. Is it can go. It's usually our longest one. It takes the longest time, the most rabbit holes to go down, and that's what we're here for. That's what we want. The more rabbit
I hope
holes,
there's some
better.
value in it. I hope there was some value in it. So yeah,
absolutely. This next one, you did already kind of mention it a little bit, or I'm assuming,
Yeah.
because this is kind of what you put the words to it, but maybe you can dive in a little more on it. What was your training awakening moment?
Yeah, I think honestly, it was the mindset moment with Mark Von Oppen. Honestly, that really did change my whole approach to everything, and understanding that competence, being good at this job is not only is it okay, it's kick ass. Like it's something to brag about, man. It is. Like being good at what you do is awesome. Like do your job, treat people right, all in attitude, all out effort. I love the Big Four. I love Mark Von Oppen, and he completely changed my fire service career, which by proxy has completely changed my shift, my department in some aspects, and even the American Fire Service. I mean, he's changed the American Fire Service just with his message. So, but yeah, the ripple effect from that, the mindset on a specific levels, man. There's certain things. I remember one time making a fire. I was driving, and I had parked my rig. We had started the pre-connects. It wasn't even a bad fire of any way, shape, or form. And the second due came in and dropped its line and was gonna pull up to the hydrant and hook up. And I remember kneeling on the LDH back there behind it and telling the rig to go, right? And boom, that coupling caught on the hose bed, and that LDH it came out from under me and took off down the road chasing that engine, and I'm standing there, smoke rising behind me, pre-connects going. We have 1,000-gallon tank, so it's not like it was just like this imperative thing. But I remember standing there just like about to it was just, I can still remember it to this day. It was just like about to overwhelm me. I'm like, oh shit, I just fucked everything up, and literally like a calm, like settled. And it was just like, hey, do your job. And it's going to work out. Just do your job. Let them know. And it was I can still remember it. It doesn't sound like that big a deal. I just remember going from this utter, holy shit, I just ruined everything. We're going to burn this house to the ground. It's all my fault. All this chaos in my head to, hey, just do your job. Everything's going to be okay. And that was a real epiphany that's always stuck with me for whatever reason. I can still remember to this day that coupling coming out, that hose kicking out from under me. And it's moments like that. I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die in this 12 by 12 bedroom. Like I was on a primary search, completely disoriented in this bedroom. And it was a 12 by 12 bedroom, tiny, like 1,000 square foot house. And it wasn't even, the fire, they already had water on the fire. It was almost it should have almost been a secondary, but it was still the primary search. And I remember it was dominated by this king bed and then a ton of clutter. Not really hoarder conditions, but because the king bed, you could almost consider it because there was just not much room left in and I remember going, this is where I go out. Like I can't find my way out of this bedroom. Now, eventually it wasn't even that dangerous a situation and it cleared up. But it was moments like that make you realize there's those reality checks. That's what I call them, the reality checks. I had one the other day. As a battalion chief, my crews are training for Tactical Tuesday. We do Tactical Tuesday, and we set up multi-company drills. And I used to set them up, and they were surprise drills. No one knew exactly what was coming. It'd be a first and second due at a fire, and we'd run through the radio traffic, with cold smoke or whatever, and dummy victim, and they progressively got worse. We'd have multiple victims. We'd have maydays. We'd have no victims, but they didn't know that. Just all these whatever wrinkles we could throw. The main thing is radio communication, task assignment, and just working together so that we're smooth. That's the main thing, not really the actual tactical and tasks, although it's a great benefit to have those tactics and tasks. But long story short, I've done so many of them that I was running out of ideas, and so I had my crew start designing them. And so that was way better because now, like the last one was on top of a big box store, air conditioning tech got electrocuted, and it was a great little drill for multi-company drill, getting them down, dealing with the lockout, tag out, the electric, how are we going to handle it? All of it, just stuff we don't normally touch, on the regular. It was great. So the current one is our guys got a semi truckload of, I'll say it, trash from Goodwill. And they asked for 50% clothes, 30% hard furniture, or 30% soft stuff, and then 20% hard furniture. And they got a dump a semi load full of trash, and filled up a search area, which they designed it to be oriented search. So there's a living room, there's a hallway, there's bedrooms, there's a kitchen, and it is not hoarder conditions. It is realistic conditions. Like you're actually going to face in it, which is pretty much damn near hoarder conditions, but they're not quite. Like hoarder where it starts stacking and you're crawling over the stuff versus there's just a ton of clutter, which is like a normal house that we'd respond to. And so they've got a nice normal actual realistic conditions inside there. And the other day they were preparing for Tactical Tuesday, which is tomorrow. And they said, "Hey Chief, you want to run one?" And I was like, "Oh, right." So I went and threw on my bunker gear and went in with them. And it was a gut check, not a gut check. It was a reality check of, man, it's been a while since you've been crawling around here in a tripod position, trying to stay communicated in zero vis. And it was a good reality check. And I think it's good to have those awakening moments because it's easy to lose them, especially once you promote out of the engine and onto the buggy. It's real easy to lose sight of those awakening moments because you don't do it no more. And I think it's so important to throw on your gear every once in a while and do some reps with the crews. Not because, in my job, the chances of me being on an oriented search in any way, shape, or form is next to negligible. Like there's no. Once I went to the buggy, I'll probably never be interior on a fire again unless I'm interior command at a stairwell on something that's pretty big. The chance of me being on a hose line is not. But anyway, not the point. So it's easy for me to say I don't need to do that stuff anymore. It's really easy, but it's so important if you want to have those awakening moments to keep putting on the gear, keep doing what the crews are doing, and it was good. They asked, "Hey Chief, what'd you think?" And I was able to give some good insight on, and be like, "Man, you guys are doing great communicating with each other. You're doing phenomenal. Like, I can't believe how good their communication was with each other, staying oriented with each other and what was searched, what wasn't searched." I said, "But keep in mind, man, live fire, layout, but don't forget call out. Like your ears and calling out are so, so important on your search, man. Take time to stop talking and listen, call out, listen." And it was really cool because the next rep, one of our captains went in there, was the live victim, laying there. And he didn't quite hide, but he crawled up on top of some furniture. And when they were practicing the call out, he would say, "Over here." And they actually found him because of the call out. And so it was pretty cool to reinforce it. It was really cool. But bottom line, whatever level you're at, get in your gear and do some reps, because if you don't, you won't have those training awakening moments. And they come all the time. It's not just a single one. So they come all the time. The reality checks.
Yeah. I'll touch on something you mentioned there, because it was something that I experienced right away coming out of school is going through fire school. I don't know if you remember when you were going through, or if they still teach it down by you. The phrase was always thrown out that there's no such thing as too much communication. And you go through your reps in fire school, and when you get hired and everything, and you're just sitting there, you're like, "Hey, I'm over here. I got a couch. I got a chair. I got a TV." And like, you get to the real world, you get here, and it's like, that's not true, right? There is such thing as too much communication, and you only need to relay those important things. You need to relay when I find, like, if I know you're in a living room, if we enter and there's living room left, and I'm going right, and I see you going left, I know you're going to find a couch. I know you're going to find a chair. I know you're going to find a TV. Like that, it's a living room. You're in the kitchen. I know you're going to find a stove, like all that. But I think when you're focused on that, on just yelling and communicating with your partner, one, you're not focusing on a search, and two, you aren't doing those call outs.
Right.
I mean, our last fire that we had one of our new members. It was our first fire. We got down, we cleared the second story, and then we got right down and started doing the first story. And there was a time where I told her, I was like, "Hey, stop." And because like we searched it, the first floor was all getting renovated. So there was construction stuff everywhere. And we thought we had a good knock and found it. Brennan was on the hose line. They had found everything. And I was like, "Let's stop and let's just listen." Because we were listening for any fires, like listen, fire victims, everything. And I think we had done really good training with her, where she definitely was not there, but at the level it was when you were coming out of school, where you're screaming at each other like, "Oh, I got this and this." But it was kind of a reminder. She said after, she's like, "I didn't even think about doing that." and just stopping, listening, doing that call out. I'd be like, hey, fire department call out, and just listen, turn down the radio, listen a little bit, and make your next decision.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And there's like, everything's a dichotomy. And you make such good points. And I want to say, I understand the reason why they train. You can't communicate too much. You can't, because if you're gonna do something too much, communicate too much. That'll keep you safe. And that's that safety culture. And I get it. I understand why they teach it. But man, it's like, especially that enforces such bad habits, like on the radio. You get story time on the radio where people start, and then you start studying radio traffic. And there's a reason you need to be concise, clear and concise. Concise being so important. The more radio traffic you have, the exponentially the chances go up that you're going to miss priority traffic of some sort. And you can see it over and over and over if you listen to Maydays and the radio traffic there. And so I think it's important to keep. I understand why they teach it. I do, because they want to enforce communication's important. You have to stay oriented with it. I get it. But at the same time, I think we have to keep focused on the fact that the more concise we can be, the more clear everything can be, especially when you start throwing in radios and not just, we're talking about oriented search or, split search or anything like that. When we're talking about the entirety of the fire ground, and from the strategic to tactical all the way down to the task level, the more concise we can be, the more stuff we can keep face to face when possible, and only announce benchmarks. I think there's so much we could learn and apply from that mindset, the couch mindset.
Yeah, right. That's one of the good things and cool changes they got to experience. Is now I do help teach at one of our tech colleges, and though a lot of the lead instructors there, that is how they teach now. Is I haven't heard that comment made since I left fire school. And nice. they teach like, yes, if you're not going to do something too much, and they don't harp on it until you get like second semester, you get later into it where you get actual drills. But fire one, if you're sitting there and you're calling out everything, they're not going to hound you on it. But then, afterwards going to talk about it. And they're going to say, basically, like I said, I stole that from one of the instructors. Like, if you're in a living room, I know you're going to find all this stuff. Right. I know, like, you don't need to tell me, oh, I got a couch over here, unless there's a victim on the couch and you're going to say, hey, I got a victim over here. I know you're going to find a couch, a TV, and a sofa in that living room. Like, so
let me know the unusual, not the usual. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I love it. I love it.
Next one that we got that we're really curious to hear from, because I think we haven't, as new firefighters, we've definitely focused on questions as new firefighters. I mean, you're not the first chief that we've had on here, but I think this is something that really can help firefighters, maybe not at our current level, but understand where the chief's coming from. So how do you protect the training culture as a chief officer?
Ooh, you guys have killer questions. I love this. First off, you need to have Chief Scott Thompson on as a guest. He's one of the greatest people ever. He's one of my biggest mentors. He wrote the foreword for my book. I love him. He is one of my idols. He's coming in 5 days. He's coming to my city, and he's going to come have dinner at Station 1. And anyway, no, but you guys need to have him on 100% because his answer to this question will be phenomenal. He's the number one guy I know on culture. But 100%, it doesn't matter what culture we're talking about. You guys are specifically talking about training, which is beautiful. But whatever the culture is, it's. I always talk about, and I may have got this from Chief Thompson. To be honest, I don't know how much stuff is mine and how much is Thompson's and other people. I don't want to take away from other people also, but my biggest influence is Scott Thompson. But it's like the front yard of your house. If you have a house and you have a front yard, it's out there. It's growing. It is going to do its thing. And I talk about this in my classes and stuff. And we've all seen the yards that look like the jungles of Vietnam. It's just 7 foot high, weeds, everything. No, it's never seen a weed eater, never been mowed. The ones the county have to come in and brush hog. You know what I'm saying? And that's someone's front yard. And then we've seen yards that look immaculate, like a putting green with perfectly manicured. And I always tell people, which one takes more work? I mean, obviously the one that's manicured and looks beautiful took a lot more work to get there. But and the other one took a long time to get where it got, but it took a lot less work to get there. It just happened. And that's culture. You can let culture go and you get what you get. And maybe you let it go and you get that manicured lawn, right? It's not likely, but it's not, it's possible. It's like, but the point is, how hard is it to spot a weed or a problem or an issue or a Ford F-150 in the overgrown yard. And then how hard is it to spot a problem coming, a weed, a new issue in that manicured yard? You know, it's easy to spot it. And so, the manicured yard takes way more work and effort to build. But once it's built, now it perpetuates itself because it's so much easier to fix problems as they pop up because they don't match. Now, in the other one, once it's there, man, it's there. It's going to take 20 times the effort to try and even get it knocked back down to where you could see a new weed. You know what I'm saying? And so when new weeds pop up, you just have problems all the time. It's just a toxic culture, and people are just wading through it, trying to find their way through it. And so that's culture. That's culture. It's what you exist in. Some departments look like the jungles of Vietnam, and some look like manicured and highly functioning. And the thing is, it has to be deliberately built. And so when it comes to training, it has to be built on purpose. It's not going to happen on accident. You can have at me as a battalion chief. I'm in four stations is what I control. Technically, I'm a shift commander because we don't have multiple battalions. But battalion chief, I have 4. I can have a badass company officer that runs a badass crew, and he trains all the time, right? Irregardless of what I do, he's creating his own culture for his station. You know what I mean? And so that can happen. But typically speaking, the leader is in charge of developing the culture that they want on purpose. And you develop it. The best way to protect it is to make it important to you. If it's important to you, it will be important to the people that you're responsible for. And your priorities become their priorities when you take care of your people. So one of the best ways to protect a training culture is make training important to you as the leader, and then protect your people. Because if you protect your people and you take care of your people, then what's important to you becomes important to them. And so, man, I love Eric Saylors out of San Francisco. He's now, I forget which city he's at now. He became the fire chief at a different city, but he did his career in San Francisco. And I asked the 5 questions for firefighters often on the weekly scrap, or every time on the weekly scrap. And one of the questions I used to ask in the original ones was, what's the best position to have in the fire service? Right. And hands down, the number one answer was company officer over and over and over. It's like 75% of the answers from all firefighters was company officer. And of course, some people said backstep, and a few people said, battalion or whatever. So even one person said training chief, and I don't think anybody ever said fire chief, at least not if it wasn't sarcastically. But long story short, I loved Eric Saylor's answer to this. And it was, at first it was one of those cop-out answers that I hate, that I won't give max points for, but it was one of those, whatever position you're in. Whatever position you're in should be the best position in the American Fire Service. And to me, that's a cop-out answer, because that doesn't help. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, but he went on to say, but I'll explain it to you this way. He goes, and I love this because I've used this ever since he said it to me. He says, when you're a firefighter, your job is to take care of the patient, to take care of the victim, to take care of the people, right? He goes, that's your job as a firefighter. He goes, then you promote. He goes, and now your job is to take care of the people that take care of the people. He goes, and then when you promote to a battalion chief, he goes, now your job is to take care of the people that take care of the people that take care of the people. And I'm telling you, man, if you want your people to excel, take care of them, man. Protect them, take care of them, let them know that you have their back. And when you do that, then everything that is your priorities will become important to them. And it's powerful. It is so, 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 so powerful. And so if you want to protect the training culture, A, make training important to you. And then B, take care of your people. Because whatever's important to you, if you take care of your people, they will impress you. And then, of course, there's so much more to it. Give them the autonomy, the tools, the responsibility, and the authority to do stuff. And man, they'll blow your mind. When they feel safe, psychologically safe, and know that they can go out there and they can do stuff and not get in trouble for it, they can take chances. I'm not saying abuse equipment or anything, but they can go out there and do stuff, and that you have their back, man, they'll blow your mind with how awesome they are. They really will. I mean, people want to be amazing. They just need to know how. And so if you give them the sidelines, you give them the end zone and say, go, I got your back, they'll score touchdowns over and over and over. It's like Tactical Tuesday tomorrow. It's going to be amazing. It has nothing to do with anything I built. They built it with goodwill. They went through some hoops. They've got, man, they put so much effort into this, and it's going to be amazing. And it's nothing I did. it's them being awesome. So that's it. That's the quick formula. Take care of your people and they will impress you.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, keeping right in line with kind of this mindset. The next one is, and this is again at a battalion chief level.
Sure.
What are your priorities when you arrive on scene? So I don't know how fast you get on scene with them, or if you kind of roll up at the same time, but I'm assuming some stuff goes unsaid and some stuff you order. What do you like to see? What does your typical scene look like?
Man, I love this. Again, I can say this every. I love your question. Great question. And I'm going to answer it a couple of different ways. So the first one I want to say is my priorities as the battalion chief of C shift is I want, and I'll start. My caveat is this: I have 27 square miles of what we cover, 4 stations, 75, 24 per shift. Right now, getting ready to go to 25 per shift. Getting ready to put a new rig in service. Have our first 2 company house. We'll see how that goes, but not the point. I'm very blessed in the fact that I'm usually rolling up with first due or with second due. Like I'm very blessed, unless it's on an extreme side from where I'm stationed. I'm going to be there first or second due. Now, my priority or my goal as the battalion chief, long before the call comes in, is to have trained with the things like Tactical Tuesday and our walkthrough Thursdays, my district Mondays, and all these goofy things. And I tell my guys all the time, hey, I'm your battalion. You're stuck with my goofy stuff, so you have to do it. But my goal through all of this stuff is, when the call drops, when it's going, when I show up on scene, I don't have any decisions to make on an ordinary, I don't want to say bread and butter, I hate that, but a run-of-the-mill, ordinary, mundane emergency, like a typical room and content, self-vented house fire, any sort of, insert the mundane emergency. When I show up, I have no decisions to make because they are empowered and they have the ability to assign the duties that need to be done. And we're all on the same page, operating from the same playbook and have the same expectations, so that there's nothing for me to do when I show up. That's my goal, not out of laziness. It's just, I want them so empowered that they're not waiting on me to make a decision when I show up. They already feel empowered enough and have the competency enough to make the call to assign, we need water on the fire, we need a search completed, and we need ventilation. That's the 3 things that I want them to have accomplished and assigned, maybe not accomplished, but assigned and underway, whether I'm there to make the call or not. Now, then what that does is that frees up so much bandwidth for me. So now I can do 30,000 foot view of the scene, and I can be looking for anything that's out of the ordinary, unusual, atypical to start. Just in case as needed, which 90% of the time hopefully is not, or 100% of the time would be ideal. But so that's the first answer is I want my priorities is long before the call drops, they already have everything under control. Now, that being said, priorities when you arrive on scene, very, very simple for me. And I teach this in my class, Down and Dirty Fireground Decision Making. Making decisions is simple if you understand your priorities. Like making decisions on a fireground, on any emergency scene, if you understand your priorities. And I talk about LIP, L-I-P. And I discovered this isn't across the country, that's not taught everywhere. I didn't know that, but there's places that don't know life safety, incident stabilization, property conservation, LIP. And what LIP is one of the very first things I ever learned in the fire service. And it's life safety, incident stabilization, property conservation. Those are the priorities on any incident. I don't care if we're talking about the worst hazmat incident, derailment, all the way down to, like I said, room and contents or minor fender bender, at the intersection. LIP are your priorities on any incident. Life safety is number 1. Incident stabilization is number 2. Property conservation is number 3. And if you understand LIP, then making decisions on any scene is simple. And that's what I call down and dirty fireground decision making. But if you take the big L out of the equation, man, everything slows down. When you take the big L, you take life safety and you remove it, you take it out of the equation, boom, everything slows down. Then it's all about incident stabilization, and of course, property conservation will be your third. And that's it. That's what I preach, and it really is. When you understand your priorities, making decisions is simple. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it is simple. So, and then you start assigning stuff. Biggest thing is L. Every time you come off the rig, life safety, life safety, life safety. Do we have victims? Where are they at? How can we mitigate the life safety factor to this? And that drives all your decisions. When you understand your priorities, then you can easily decide on your strategy, which determines your tactics, which ultimately determines the task you're going to actually perform on the scene. So it just cascades down. But you have to have a solid understanding of your priorities first, and then of course start plugging in strategy, tactics, all the way down to task level that you assign to the people. And competency, determines success. So that's the short answer of the. I think it's a 4-hour class, but I think there's a 90-minute version. But yeah, that's the short answer.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like you said with your crews, that's something we try and do, and we've talked about here is why it's important to train with your crews as an officer. For us, we have lieutenant and captains, and then our AC and actual fire chief. And yeah, that first 5 minutes on a fire, when it's just your crew that shows up, we all know our jobs. I mean, we have a whiteboard that has all our assignments on there, and we got our names because we're really unique, and actually it's kind of fun because everybody does everything. So if you got the cert, you do it on our job. It's driver is not a promotion.
Okay.
The only thing that's promoted is the lieutenant and captain, but even they ride the ambulance. So when they're not on the ambulance during their rotation, they're in the right seat. If they are on the ambulance and they're not on a run, they jump right seat. Everything's laid out, and it runs really smooth, and it gives a lot of cool opportunities to be in those experiences and get to do it all the time. For me, I love it ambulance wise because I do love running on traumas and on critical calls and helping people on the ambulance. But if I was on it for every day for 7 years, that would suck.
Right.
And I would never want that, but then I would also never want to never be on it again. That's what a lot of jobs do is you're on it for 5, 7, 10 years, and then you promote off and you're off the ambulance for the rest of your career. And I would never like that. For us, we're on it twice every 6 shifts or twice every 8 shifts. So it's really nice. It gives that, but
distribute.
It also gives, I think, a flexibility. So like our shift, we got one senior guy who he's by far our senior guy. I mean, he's got 3 years left. I'm 3 years on, and that's the gap. It's him, then me.
Wow. Yeah.
And so he loves to drive. So if he's not on the ambulance, he is our driver. He's our engine driver. So like we have a kind of an assigned MPO or chauffeur, whatever you call it, but we also still get to do it. So, I think it gives everybody a mindset of knowing what's going on. But with that whiteboard, you come in, you see what it is. We've got our assigned tasks with it. So we know who's on the engine, but then who's got the pipe, who's got the irons, who's on ladders, who's on search. And yeah, the first 5 minutes, when those 8 people on the whiteboard show up, we know exactly what everybody's doing. And
no, it's phenomenal.
We should do our job.
No, and it's crazy to me that so many people don't have that, don't have a default. This is it doesn't mean that we can't deviate. It's not like we're set in concrete. But this is our default. This is what everybody can expect from everybody else. It's expectations and responsibilities assigned beforehand, and man, it raises your level of efficiency, raises your level of effectiveness on the fire ground so immensely. Not only that, but I love you can't how do I say it? You can't call an audible if you don't have a play. Everything's an audible at that point. So anyway.
That's a really good point. And I can't remember if this was talked about on our podcast or it was one of the trainings we went to, but we got in this conversation about the assigning tasks and, the other coin of the fire service, the volunteer side. And I can't remember if it was the guests or the training, but they had a really great idea. They're like, people say, a lot of volunteers can say, well, I can't make an assignment because I don't know who's going to show up at, 3 p.m. on a Friday.
Right.
And who's going to show up at overnight. And they're like, you label the engine. So they showed their packs actually have assignments. So like if you're on the engine and you're in this seat, if you hop in, you're on the pipe, you're on the irons, and they've got a little label on the pack. So the officer, whoever it is, they hop in, they know that, their right seat, they're the officer. They turn around and they know that, these 2 guys, they know what they're doing. And even the department I was talking about is you even get people that do have that preference. So then they pick that seat.
Right.
You kind of have people that they are assigned to it because this guy likes being on the pipe, this guy likes being on the irons. So you turn around and you see them in that position. You're like, hey, I know exactly what our jobs are and do. And I thought that was a genius way of bridging that gap between full time and volunteer.
No, absolutely, and I love that. I love that system based off packs, and I don't care what system you put in place as long as you have one. And I've heard that before. I've heard it before with it's great to have assignments, but with a volunteer, you never know at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night who's going to show up and what, you can't have assignments, you can't have responsibilities. And again, I speak from ignorance because I have no experience in the volunteer side of things. Okay, I'm 100% a career department since my first year. So when I speak of it, I'm saying I think it's even more important to have those assignments and responsibilities distributed in some way when you don't know who's coming. Like, because at least if you don't have them formally assigned in a crew where you're always the same and like a typical career setup, you have the unspoken expectations that kind of exist. You know what I'm saying? I still think it's way better to have defaults. Like, don't get me wrong, the whiteboard, the assignments, way better. But I think it's even more important to have them in the volunteer side of things when you don't know who is going to show up. I think it's the opposite of what they say. Well, we don't know who we're getting, so we can't have those. No, we don't know who we're getting, so we need to have those even more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Last of our general questions we got. It's crazy. It's already been almost an hour and a half that goes by. This is how it happens.
Yeah, you guys got to shut me down whenever you want to shut me down.
No. We got like I told you, we're only limited to our 2 hours because that's all we financially can do with the subscription. So
fair enough.
We got to upgrade it up. Which, you know what, shit happens. Oh well, we'll pay an extra one. But no, we're doing plenty fine on time, and hopefully we'll get into a little bit more because we still got the closing question and your own question, which tends to be a nice conversation piece. So, but our last general question is, what is the best way to show appreciation to your members?
Man, there's so many good. I think I'll just go. I mean, I don't want to be too generic in the answer, but it really is. I think we're terrible in the American Fire Service at doing it, but it's just acknowledgement of the effort. Like just sincere acknowledgement of hard effort. And I'm not saying like any little thing. And I say this all the time. I'm like, hey, good job showing up for shift today on time. That's a really good job. That's flattery. That's hot air. That is worthless. It's just, it has no value. But when someone puts in effort, like these cats that just threw together Tactical Tuesday tomorrow with the Goodwill, they put some effort into it, man. And so it's all about acknowledging it. Now part of it is they're going to get acknowledged by the other crews who go through this and be like, holy God, you guys did amazing. Thank you for putting this together. They're going to get that acknowledgement. But man, taking the time you have to acknowledge your people. Hal Moore, everybody knows him from We Were Soldiers. Mel Gibson played him in that movie, I think around 2002. He was colonel at the time in charge of the 82nd Airborne, the Air Cavalry. I could be getting some of my stuff wrong, but not the point. He fought the Battle of La Drang. The very first, they were heavily outnumbered, surrounded on all sides. I think there was like a 20-to-1 kill ratio of what they survived in that first battle. Amazing battle. But and he had such an impact on like Norman Schwarzkopf ended up going infantry because Hal Moore taught at his when he was going through. And anyway, long story short, Hal Moore talks about it. He says, and I'll butcher his quote, when you don't acknowledge your high performers, or when you don't acknowledge the good work that your people do, I forget which way he says it, eventually you'll see less and less. You'll drive them away from your organization. You'll drive them out of your unit. And you have to acknowledge. Now, and that's it. That is what shows appreciation. People, there's a saying that says, how can you tell if someone needs a pat on the back? And the answer is, it's because they're breathing. Plain and simple. Everybody loves to be acknowledged for doing something good. Like it feeds our soul. We're tribal creatures. We through time have become conditioned, evolved, whatever word you want to use. We belong to tribes. One of the worst things that can happen to us is to be excluded from our tribe, right? That means death. Back in the day, if you got kicked out of your tribe, if you weren't accepted, you were going to be out on your own, and to be alone meant death. And so that's deep rooted in our animal brain, or back in the amygdala. It's deep rooted, and that's where serotonin, oxytocin, and cortisol. One of the big reasons we have a cortisol dump in our brain, one of the reasons we get stressed, even though we're sitting in an office, whenever we feel like we're not accepted, that cortisol hits, and our brain doesn't know the difference between being stalked by a saber-toothed tiger in the jungle and being unsafe in the office complex. And a lot of this is Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last and his circle of safety, and a lot of it's his stuff, but it's absolutely true. And so one of the greatest things you can do for your members is to show appreciation to them when they have hard-earned effort, because that lets them know they belong. It gives them that serotonin, that oxytocin, I think more of a serotonin hit of acceptance in the brain chemistry. And then they want more of it, so they want to do more of that effort. It's in our biology. It's in our DNA. So acknowledgement of hard-earned effort and hijacking the brain chemistry system to maximize effort from your people. And that comes from that psychological safety, man. It really does. Acknowledgement.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a little bit more of a push recently on our department, because we have, you have your awards, you have like your saves and stuff like that. But I think right when I started was probably in the start of the lull of it, and in the last year they've tried to get better. But there was no awards being handed out, and they looked at it, and the reason was because it had to be the people on the crew of whatever call it was that submitted for the award.
No, and when there's no awards, I don't know why this always comes from admin, but it's like there's no awards. Well, no one submitted.
Yeah.
And you said it. What's the best way to show appreciation to your members? That's your question you asked.
Yeah.
And you show appreciation. Like, you don't need them to submit for it.
Exactly.
That's the cart in front of the horse.
Yeah.
So and they use it as an excuse. But sorry.
That's just not our personality. Like,
right.
I'm not going to put in for an award for myself.
Doing my job.
Yeah,
you're
right.
going to shrug it off.
It's all the thank me for my service. We talked about it.
I don't want you to pat me on the back. I don't want that. I don't need it. Right.
Yeah. That's what you say on the outside, but yeah, you're right. On the inside, like, it is nice, and it is good to have that culture and to give those awards without making it that crew has to submit it, because the only time you would have that happen, and I think it was kind of cool to see. I mean, they understand a little bit better, is the times you would have it happen would be your officers that were on the call. So like our lieutenant tried doing it. He had a save last year, and he put in for the crew to get it.
The crew,
but he was on it. He left himself out,
right.
And then another officer, one of the captains, saw it and went and put his name on it. Like,
no, that's the way we're wired. Like, you can see it. You can see it. Like I go to a football game, NFL game, and I get my tickets, go see my Redskins play the Cowboys, and I wouldn't know it, but it was First Responder Appreciation Day, and they're like, "Oh, first responders, stand up," and you're like, "No, I'm not standing up. can't make me." We don't want the attention. We don't want it, right? Mm-hmm. No. 100%. I get it. That's the way we're wired. Most of us are wired that way. It's like, I don't need that. It's not why I'm doing it. In fact, it almost in our minds, our actual mental minds, it almost dirties why we do what we do. It's like, that soils it. Right.
Yeah.
That's our mental. That's the thinking cognitive system one. But when we're acknowledged, we can't help it. Doesn't matter what we think. We get that oxytocin or that serotonin hit. We feel more accepted. We feel acknowledged by our peers. We feel acknowledged by our superiors. We feel more accepted. We can't help but feel good about it. It's chemistry. It has nothing to do with what we think. So we don't want it. We're not going to put it in for it. We're not going to stand up at First Responder Appreciation Night, but we absolutely love it when it happens. We can't help it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll be curious to see, because I was on vacation for the last awards one, but Brendan, there was a decent amount that they handed out last year, right?
Yeah, really? There's a couple, all the retirement stuff and a couple life save stuff. So
and if you haven't read, most people have, but Pride and Ownership by Rick Lasky, man, it touches on that so much of the acknowledgement part of it. 100%.
Yeah, we got Taylor actually helped us. That was one of the things our chief did when he came in, is when you left, there really wasn't anything. I mean, for us, we're being city employees, the years of service that you get awarded for the city is, 15 years is what? Isn't that a sweatshirt, Brendan? Is it 15 or 20? But either way, like that's what you get from the city. And our chief came in and he saw it and he was like, "Are you shitting me?"
Right.
Like, I get it, that's what every city employee gets. So DPW, everybody, that was what they got from the city. And chief is like, "No, we can do something additional. We can do something better than that." So we started years of service tins with Taylor Tins. So
Nice.
they designed them, and they're really cool. So every 5-year interval, you get one, and when you retire, you get one, and put them on plaques, and they're really, really cool thing. They really turned out really great. But it was just, that was a little thing that came right around that same time where they're like, hey, why aren't we getting these other awards? Why aren't we doing this? There's nothing that's given to be appreciation for you guys.
2 things. A, Taylor's awesome, period.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
One of the best dudes on the planet, some best products. So I can't say enough good stuff about Taylor's tins. And then you can see my collection back there. I think I have one of the most impressive collections. I have even more that I can't put. Anyway, not the point. I love them, man. I do. But second thing is, you'd be amazed at, I don't think you'd be amazed. I shouldn't say it that way. It's crazy to me how many departments don't even have something like a sweatshirt. Like they don't have anything. And there's tons of them, and it's mind blowing. So it's awesome that you have that, and you're trying to make it better, saying that's not good enough. That's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many out there that don't even have anything. So it's crazy to me, any sort of acknowledgement. And they scratch their head and wonder, what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Yeah, we're really excited to have Taylor on it and talk to him. I threw it in the last one we were introducing him. We got his wife was the one that convinced him. So we were messaging because I'm our point of contact for it too.
Gotcha.
So for the podcast and for at work and just personal, I've always been Facebook messaging, and I was like, hey, it was after they did one of their limited edition sales. I was like, hey, now that I got in a second limited edition, don't you think that means Taylor should come on the podcast? And
yes,
they said back to I think that makes sense. And I was like, sweet. And then she responded with, and this is his wife, so I have a little pull. Right. And then the next week she was like, yep, he'll come on. I was like, great.
I said, this is the kind of stuff he does for just like we call him. Say, can you make bookmarks? He goes,
oh my god,
yeah, all sorts of stuff. That's just something that's sitting in front of me. Well, anyway,
so cool. Yeah. But no, I cut you off. What were you going to say? You're going to dive more into it, and you shrugged it off. We got plenty of time.
No, I don't know. What were we talking about? I don't think I did.
We're talking about the appreciation. See, you started and then you went, nah, right at the end there.
I don't remember. Sorry, brother.
Well, we'll see.
That's typical Corley squirrel brain. So
no, that's fine.
If I think of it, I'll bring it back. I'll snap my fingers because it might come up in a few minutes. It might come up 7 hours from now.
Sounds good. Well, all right. I mean, that concludes all our general ones. So now we got our closing questions.
Sweet.
Which I'm sure you saw in there. But yeah, our last guest was BJ, and his question for you is: you're cooking on shift tomorrow. What are you making?
I'm not a firehouse kitchen guru. Let's put it that way. But I am a firehouse kitchen. I can cook. So I would do probably tacos, because you can't ruin tacos. I firmly believe this, man. If you can ruin tacos, you're a special kind of special. And so tacos is like, and the thing is, you can go super fancy on the tacos, because tacos really come down to the number of accoutrements that you can put upon them, right? and the important thing is flash frying the tortillas, whether it's flour or corn. Flash frying those, and I'm always a soft taco guy. I'm not really a hard shell guy, but you can throw those in the oven and break them. But flash fry the tortillas. Do your time. A little sprinkle of salt, and it takes them from like average tacos to 6. It'll take them up to an 8. Just flash frying the tortillas. But everything else is about dicing tomatoes, lettuce, cilantro, lime, onion, all the stuff that you can put on them. But tacos are God's gift to mankind, and especially God's gift to the firehouse kitchen.
Heck yeah.
So it's funny that you mentioned tacos, because my one of my first meals, I've gotten a lot better, especially in the kitchen and look at some of the guys that cook on our shift. But I was picky. So like onions, tomatoes, I'm still not big on them. If you cook them right and then there, I'll eat them. So I decided to make tacos because I really hadn't cooked much. I mean, I lived with my parents through paramedic and everything, and I moved out of the house like a month before I started. So I was really just learning how to adult in one big giant group.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'll start with tacos. Like I can't mess up tacos. Exactly. You said, got all my stuff, and my lieutenant, he was my firefighter, he was my mentor at the time, laid everything out, and he's like, where's the rest of it? I was like, what do you mean? Like I got my tacos here. He's like, no tomatoes, no onions. I had meat, cheese, sour cream, and lettuce on the table. That was all that I brought. because that was how I ate my tacos.
That's how you ate your tacos.
That was how I ate them. I didn't think about that. So yeah, the next time I made them, and he still will. Every time I make tacos now, he's like, "Yo, you're actually gonna,
you gonna have some tomatoes this time? Maybe some."
Yeah. Now I get the tomatoes, the onions, rice, beans.
Yes.
I
little guacamole.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But
Sliced
that was a fun learning experience of how to. I did mess up tacos, and Brennan can talk about what
we all mess up our meals. Oh yeah. So I don't even know what I was making, but I somehow fucked up noodles. I don't know. I like overcooked them or what, but yeah, it was a big joke running around now. But yeah, we all have our meals that we all mess up.
No, I destroyed some fried rice one time. It was I don't even know what it was. It was supposed to be fried rice, but man, whatever it was at the end, I'm surprised people still ate it. It was just like, oh, that was bad. So
Brennan found a way to reverse engineer the noodles back to cornstarch. Like that was
nice.
That's what it was.
Deconstructed noodles.
Yeah. Some paste. I don't know. I was like, how did I mess up noodles? But
love it.
It all came together in the end. So
yeah.
That's
I mean,
a big
and
joke.
Yeah, that's how that's at the end part. I mean, we'll have your opportunity to ask the question here, but like that's what we throw on the kitchen table. We're talking about it. I mean, so much conversation and good comes from the kitchen table and from meals and there. I mean, it's the best part of the firehouse in terms of like the downtime. I mean, if you're downtime around the kitchen table, I've said it on multiple episodes. It's where we solve all the world's problems.
Absolutely,
like
fix everything.
Yeah, everything's fixed at the kitchen table, and we're like, oh man, why don't we in charge of everything? Like. It's such a good bonding experience there. And
without a doubt. And great meals, unbelievable meals. Some of the greatest meals I've ever had in my life, man. Some people just knocked it out of the park. And but the thing that gets me, it's kind of like poker. If you ever played poker, you have some great wins, some great stomps. But what you really remember more than the great pots is the bad beats when you got just the bad beats. And that's the same thing with the firehouse kitchen table. Yeah, you had good meals, but those don't stick out near as much as those terrible tacos or the deconstructed noodles. You know, those are the things like you said, your lieutenant still busts your chops about. They're those memories, that shared misery.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We had we just were talking about this with our PD because our PD comes up for breakfast, and sometimes we have a great, I dare say the best relationship with like our police department that I've seen anywhere across the country. I mean, they come up and they hang out with us. They sit in the recliners. It's I truthfully believe one of the best experiences, and it says numbers on calls. I mean, it's like on EMS calls, they know exactly where our stuff is. They know exactly how to help us. They know how to do great CPR. So they're the first on scene, and we certify them. We CPR certify them. So we know that they're getting good CPR. Fires. I think we talked about it on here. We have one of our city cops tell the county sheriff to move his squad car because he pulled up and parked right in front of the fire hydrant. And our city cop knew that and saw it and was like, hey, get the fuck out of the way.
Right.
They need that. And like, it just says so much, but we were talking about it just yesterday. They came up and we were eating and we got talking about eggs because our senior guy made some delicious eggs with mule deer sausage and ham.
Okay.
Oh my God, it was so good. And everybody was saying he was making a great job. And he was like, you can't really fuck up eggs. And me, my lieutenant, and the two cops who were there at the time went, well, we had a former member who in his recipe, he had heard or thought or remembered or taught by his mom that you needed cream to make the eggs creamy. You needed to make them fluffy. We didn't have any heavy whipping cream or milk. So he used coffee creamer, vanilla coffee creamer.
Okay. Vanilla coffee creamer eggs.
We are all sitting there eating these eggs, and like it's not like they tasted bad, but they tasted off. Like you're sitting here eating sweet eggs, and you're like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Right.
Like what is that? And we're all looking at each other like, "What is wrong with these eggs?" And finally, somebody like said something and asked, "Yeah, I used some coffee creamer." We're like, "What?" So that was like 2.5 years ago. Yeah, it's still just everybody involved there remembers it and looks back on it. I mean, it was hilarious.
Love it. Those shared memories, those shared miseries.
God, yeah. So yeah, I mean, with that one being done, now it's all on you. So our last closing question, kind of like we said, it's going to be your job to come up with one. I guess we'll kind of do our next guest is changing a little bit. We're waiting to hear back from a couple people. So just had some stuff fall through, totally understandable. We'll be trying to fill it up. Hopefully, worst case scenario, you get to listen to me and Brennan blab on for ourselves and share some of our stuff, which nobody wants to hear. So we'll find a good guest. But so unfortunately, I don't have exactly who you'll be asking the question to, but whatever question you come up with will be the one that we use for our next guest. So
I love it.
It's floor is yours.
Question for the next guest. Oh, man. I love it. I love magic wand questions. So I will give them a magic wand, and I really do love these type of questions and see where they go with it. But they get a magic wand, and they can make every firehouse, every shift. They get to make every crew spend 30 minutes doing one tradition. I don't want to say one thing. That's too broad. I want one tradition they get to spend 30 minutes on. So I say one thing, they'll say training, and that's too easy of an answer. I don't want them to say that. I want tradition that they get to make every firehouse, every fire crew spend 30 minutes on per shift. What will it be with their magic wand? I want to see where that goes.
All right. Awesome. I got it written down there. So yeah, that'll be for our next guest. If stuff falls through, if we can't find one, which I really do think we'll be able to get somebody on. We talked about a little bit before we started recording. I mean, it's crazy how people just say yes. I mean, like
it's yes.
they want to come on. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, we can't thank you enough. You said that you may not get reached out to come on a podcast enough. So, I mean, now's a chance. I mean, he said yes, and he's more than happy being here. And we talked about it. Like
I love it. I love having these discussions. Love having these discussions.
I know it's awesome. It's mind blowing. It's crazy that people do just say yes and want to spread their knowledge and come on and talk with two guys from the middle of Wisconsin that just want to hear more about fires and stuff. And it's crazy. So we'll have a good substitute that we'll get thrown in there. It'll be a great time. But that'll be a good question.
Awesome.
So that concludes all of our questions. So I mean, now we got our kitchen table is what we call it, which is just bullshit like we talked about. So if you got trainings, you got events, stuff that you want to give shout outs to and kind of get on there, or more stuff you want to expand on from the podcast, we got time, and we'll throw anything in there.
Any direction, man. First, I'll always shout out firehousevigilance.com. That's where you can get everything from the handouts for my classes to the book list from the podcast to, I mean, it's all there. That's the one stop. You can find all the social medias there, the links to them, the links to the podcast, links to the YouTube. So I always want to shout that out. I don't know how current the schedule is for every place I'm teaching and traveling to, but I think we try to keep it up to date. My wife mainly does all of that. So, but if you want to find I'm going to Michigan, Lansing here in a couple, I think next week, and then Minnesota. And then I think after that it's Missouri, and then Kansas, and then FDIC. So it's a busy couple months, and of course, on duty in there, all mixed in. Always fun. But as far as, I don't know, expanding on anything, man, I felt like I talked you guys' ears off. There's one thing I love as a podcast host. I love listening to my guests, and you guys are phenomenal. I want to tell you that and congratulate you on that. You guys are great at listening to your guests. So thank you for that. There's a lot that aren't. And I'll just say, I'm not trying to be catty or judgmental, but there's a lot of people doing podcasts that don't understand that if you're having a guest on, it's the job to listen to the guest, not talk. So if you want to talk, have your own podcast and don't bring guests on. You guys are good. You guys are really good. So thank you for that. I want to commend that you asked me. I want to acknowledge and show appreciation.
We really appreciate it. It's awesome. Yeah, I know I can get on tangents, so I try and keep it low because that's what I try to remind myself too. Is I don't have nothing to share. It's
no. You absolutely brought, and that's what I'm saying is you have value to bring. A podcast host always has value to bring, especially in probing into the question and digging in and making sure it stays on topic and keeping it between the lines. That's great. It's just I'll leave it there. That's great. And this is what I'll say is like when people ask me about New Dog's Old Tricks, I'll say, yeah, you need to go on there. It's worth spending your time there. And awesome. There's some I will say avoid that. There are some I would say avoid that because and that's not the case here. And I'm not saying that because I'm here. I'm saying that because I really enjoyed this obviously hour 45 minutes. So
yeah, that's awesome. That really means a lot. We talk about being starstruck. I mean, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, we can't thank you enough for coming on. Are you going to be in Atlanta by any chance?
The
MAPC?
MAPC? No, no MAPC for me this year. So
we're gonna Brent and I are gonna go down there.
Oh, that's
Jeremy's
awesome.
gonna be down there. So
no, phenomenal,
gonna-
phenomenal conference. I just never, it just hasn't worked out on the timing ever for me for my submissions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we're bringing one of our other coworkers and gonna get to hang out with Jeremy Sanders in person for once after we bitched out and didn't talk to him the first time we met him. So, but yeah, having him back on, can't wait. It'll be a good time. But firemanship,
yes, absolutely.
we'll be there.
Unveiling the new class, the new workshop. So hopefully we'll
Looking
say
forward to it. Yeah. That's awesome. So hopefully we'll see you there. See a bunch of other trainings, and we really can't thank you enough for coming on. And we try and end our podcast all the same way. Our little slogan that we have that Archie says we say shit too much, but it's a great one. I think it embodies just how you can be a good person, and it's also a term of endearment that we use to each other. So, but thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, don't be a shitbag.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and don't be a shitbag.
I love it. Bryce, Brennan, thanks for having me on. Thanks for inviting me, and don't be a shitbag.
Oh yeah.